Today, we're jumping into a real medical head-scratcher. It's a case where just a couple of simple clues can be the difference between someone walking away totally fine or suffering a permanent injury. Let's get into it.
Okay, picture this. You're on the scene, and a 54-year-old woman who was perfectly fine just moments ago is suddenly in serious trouble. She's confused, really weak, and her speech is all slurred. The clock is ticking, and I mean loudly. So what is the very first thing you do? What's your absolute #1 priority?
All right, to solve this, we've got to put on our detective hats. Let's start by breaking down the clues we have right from the get-go. So here's the rundown. She's 54. The really big clue here is that this was acute. It just happened. Bam! Out of the blue. And these symptoms, confusion, weakness, slurred speech, they are screaming major brain problem. And for most of us, the first word that pops into our heads is stroke, right? But hold on, is that the right assumption to make?
But then we get this piece of the puzzle, and it's kind of weird. Her vitals, they're rock solid. Blood pressure is fine, pulse is steady, she's breathing normally, and her oxygen is at 95%, which is great. So even though she's showing these alarming neurological signs, her body's core systems are just stable. This really thickens the plot, doesn't it?
So now we're at a crossroads. We've got all this info. What is the single most critical thing to do right now? Let's look at our choices. Do we give her oxygen? Get an ECG to check on her heart? Push some IV fluids? Or do we check her blood sugar? Now remember, only one of these is the right first move. And you know what? That correct first step points us straight at our prime suspect. It's a condition that is a master of disguise, an incredible mimic of some of the scariest brain emergencies out there. The answer is check her blood glucose. That's it. Before you do anything else, this one simple, super fast test could crack this whole case wide open in just a few seconds. So, why? Why is that the #1 thing to do?
It all comes down to something called hypoglycemia. Okay, think of your brain like a supercar. It needs a very specific kind of high-octane fuel to run, and that fuel is glucose, blood sugar. Your brain is a total glucose hog. It needs a constant, steady supply. So what happens when the fuel tank suddenly runs empty? Well, the engine, in this case the brain, just starts to shut down, and it happens fast.
And this is not something you can wait on. The literature is really clear about this, almost scary clear. The longer the brain is starved of sugar, the higher the risk of permanent, irreversible damage. So yeah, time is literally everything here. And this is exactly why that little finger prick test is so incredibly important. Just look at this. Side by side, the symptoms are almost identical. Confusion? Check. Weakness? Check. Slurred speech? Check. Low blood sugar can look exactly like a massive stroke. If you don't check the glucose, you could waste so much time chasing the wrong diagnosis, time the brain just can't afford to lose. Okay, so if checking the sugar is the big priority, what about those other options? Why aren't we doing those first? Well, the answer takes us right back to those stable vitals we talked about a minute ago. Let's just use some basic logic here. Give her oxygen? Why? Her O2 level is 95%. She's breathing just fine. So, nope, not the priority. What about IV fluids? Well, her blood pressure and pulse are great, so she's not dehydrated or in shock. That can wait. An ECG to check the heart. It's not a bad idea to get one eventually, but it's not the first thing you jump to here. All those stable vital signs are basically screaming at us, hey, the problem isn't with the heart or lungs. It's pointing somewhere else, to a metabolic problem.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? It really boils down to one simple but incredibly powerful lesson about emergency care, and about just how fragile the human brain can be.
In neurology, there's this mantra they repeat over and over. Time is brain. And it's so true. Every single second that brain cells go without their essential fuel, whether that's oxygen in a stroke or glucose in a case like this, they start to die. This whole scenario is time is brain in a nutshell. So let's just quickly wrap up what we've covered. First big point. Scary brain symptoms don't always equal a stroke. You've got to remember the great pretenders, like low blood sugar. Second, the brain is completely 100% reliant on glucose. No fuel, no function. It's that simple. Third, a tiny, quick blood sugar test can be the key that unlocks the entire mystery. And last, but honestly, this is the most important thing to remember. If you catch this fast, you can completely reverse it and prevent what could otherwise be a permanent brain injury.
So, I'll leave you with this one question, to really let it sink in.
What common, and thankfully very treatable condition, can look for all the world like a devastating stroke? Well, now you know. It's just a brain that's run out of gas. Thanks for joining me.